So let us continue with the first chapter in chemistry, which is chemical reactions and its equations. So what did we previously learn? We learned that any chemical reaction either makes a bond or breaks a bond, right? Now, because of this making and breaking of a bond, there are different types of chemical reactions that are formed. So today we will be learning about different types of chemical reactions. Now let us talk about the first type of chemical reaction, that is the combination reaction. So what exactly happens in a combination reaction? Let's take the example of A combining with B to give us AB. So look clearly, what do you observe? There are two reactants which are forming to give you only one single product. So this is the definition of a combination reaction, where a single product is formed from two or more reactants. So we will take this first chemical equation. What exactly is happening here? CaO, which is calcium oxide, which is also known as quicklime. Remember to note all of this down. The name of this compound is calcium oxide and another name given to it is quicklime. Alright? So calcium oxide combines with water. Water, the compound is H2O. That combines to give you CaOH twice. Now remember, this twice is only for oxygen and hydrogen. Right? We did this previously. So this is combining to give you calcium hydroxide. This is, the name is calcium hydroxide plus heat is generated. Now you can observe there are two compounds, or you can say reactants in this case, because they are on your left hand side. So these reactants are combining to give you one single product. Now the heat that is generated will go away, right? But what remains is your calcium hydroxide. Alright? So your quicklime reacts with water to give you calcium hydroxide. Now just like calcium oxide has quicklime as its name, calcium hydroxide also has another name, which is called slaked lime. Alright? We will note that down right now. So here it is, CaO, calcium oxide, known as quicklime, CaOH twice, calcium hydroxide, named as slaked lime. This will help us in any future reference. Just note that down for now. So you know that matter exists in three states, right? Which is solid, liquid, and gaseous. So this state of matter has to be mentioned for the products and the reactants that we are using. These will be called the state symbols. Now, when you are actually doing your experiments, you know what is a solid, what is a liquid, what is a gas, because you can see it from your own eyes. But when you note down the whole experiment as an equation, as a chemical equation, then it becomes difficult, right, for us to identify just with the name. So you will have to mention the state of the matter as well. So let us note that down. CaO, we took the solid CaO to combine with water. Water is in its liquid state, combined to give us CaOH twice, which is AQ. AQ means aqueous. Now what exactly is an aqueous solution? So when a compound is added with water, it will give you another compound. So if you've seen powder, when it is added with water, it becomes a little, it becomes a little mushy. So that thing that is formed is nothing but an aqueous solution. So aqueous solution is something where the solvent is your water. Alright? So in the previous example, we got the product as CaOH twice, which is calcium hydroxide, or also called as slaked lime. Alright, so what is happening in this equation? The same slaked lime is reacting with carbon dioxide to give us CaCO3, which is also called as calcium carbonate, and water as a side product. So why is this equation important to us? So this is one of the applications, alright? This equation shows us one of the uses of these two compounds, alright? So what exactly is the application? Now, the calcium hydroxide, which is reacting with the carbon dioxide, it forms a thin layer of calcium carbonate on the walls. Now, what exactly am I talking about? I'm talking about something called as whitewashing that we do on our walls, alright? So, for whitewashing, we need CaOH twice to react with carbon dioxide to give us this layer, calcium carbonate, on the wall. And if you do it for 2 to 3 days continuously, this process, then you will find a shining finish on your walls. That is because of your formation of calcium carbonate. And it is also to be noted that CuCO3, which is calcium carbonate, the chemical formula for marble is also CaCO3, right? Because even marbles are shiny, and the wall, because of your whitewashing, also becomes shiny. To make this reaction much more clear, we will have to add the state symbols. So for CaOH twice, it was in its aqueous solution, added with carbon dioxide, which is a gas, to give us CaCO3, which is solid. Anything that will be formed on your wall will have to be solid, and H2O, which is liquid. So this will give you a clear picture of what kind of matter was added to give you a different kind of matter. Alright? Now let us talk about few more examples of combination reactions. The first one would be burning of coal. So what happens here? Carbon, which is in its solid state, will be reacting with oxygen in air to give us carbon dioxide. Now coal is burnt. Here in this case, coal is burning to give you carbon dioxide. You can also take an example of your cars, which is burning out the fuel. That will also give you carbon dioxide, right? Many other things gives you carbon dioxide, which is usually emission, which means burning of things. Then we have another example of formation of water, where hydrogen reacts with oxygen to give us H2O, which is nothing but water. And remember, the state of all these elements are important. That is why it is being noted down in every element from now on, every reaction from now on. So remind yourself to write down all of these equations, alright? And if you observe any unbalanced chemical equation, try to balance it out yourself, because here in this part of the chapter, we will only be learning about the types of the reactions, because we've previously learned about balancing it. So just for practice, if you find any unbalanced chemical equation in this part of your video, try to balance it out yourself as an assignment, alright? Now, why are these examples of your combination reaction? What did we learn? That A plus B reacts to give you a single product AB, right? And what is happening in burning of coal? C plus O2 gives you CO2, right? This is only a single product, right? Then in formation of water, two reactants, hydrogen and oxygen, combine to give you H2O, which is also a single product. So two or maybe more reactants combining to give you a single product becomes your combination reaction. Now, if these single products are added with heat, then that is also a combination reaction, because don't get confused when there is an addition of heat here. Heat will pass by, so you don't have to worry about the heat. Just remember that one single compound that is formed, that is your definition of combination reaction, that only one single compound is formed. Heat will not be a compound there. Alright, remember that. Now let us talk about exothermic reactions. Now look at this word exothermic, and just with the word you will get to know what exactly is the reaction that we are talking about. Here, exo means giving out, and thermic is something related to heat. So together, it is giving out heat. So we've previously seen an example for an exothermic reaction, which was CaO plus H2O giving carbon hydroxide and heat, right? If you see, this was also an example for your combination reaction. Remember, only a single product was formed. And here, along with the single product, heat is also formed, because of which it is a combination reaction, plus it is also an exothermic reaction because of the heat which is given out. Heat is a part of the product side, not the reactant side. Remember that. Alright? Now, because of this heat, this compound that is formed will be a little warm. Now look at the irony. Calcium oxide reacting with water, giving something that is warm. Just imagine adding something to water, and that element will produce heat. Because usually when we think of water, it is something that is putting out a fire, right? But here in this case, when water is added to this compound CaO, it is giving us a warm product CaOH twice. So this is an exothermic reaction. Now we'll be talking about a few more examples. Let us take respiration for example. Do you think respiration is an exothermic process? So what exactly is happening when you're breathing in? So you take the oxygen in, and this is the formula for glucose, C6H12O6. Now this is already present in your body because of the food that you have taken in, right? So the food that you have taken in is broken down into simpler compounds. So glucose is one of those compounds. So now this glucose is reacting with the oxygen that you have taken in during respiration, and because of this, there is carbon dioxide that is coming out. There is also water that is being formed, and then you see energy that is being formed. Now this energy, here you can take it as an example for a form of heat, because this energy helps you do any other further activities. It is because of respiration and your food that you're eating, because of which you gain some amount of energy. So this becomes your exothermic process. Here if you observe, there is no heat that is being released, but you see energy which is in the form of heat that is being released. So that is why respiration is an exothermic process. Now we take another example of burning of natural gas. So here we have CH4, which is the chemical formula for methane, which is reacting with the oxygen to give us carbon dioxide and water. Now this is also a form of fuel, alright? Natural gas. So we are also talking about a form of fuel which is reacting with oxygen to give us carbon dioxide and water. If you've observed in most of these examples where I've taken the emission of this fuel and the other compounds, which are majorly causing pollution, alright? These kind of reactants that I've taken in these forms always give us the product of carbon dioxide. There's always carbon dioxide present, because we know that the fuel that is getting out of our vehicles, they are all toxic and they have carbon dioxide as one of its compounds. So remember, whenever you're burning something, whenever you're burning a fuel, you get carbon dioxide as one of your products. So now, why do you think this is an exothermic reaction? So methane is being burnt in air, alright? And because of this, now just because we're burning a natural gas, we know what happens. It might turn out to you know run your auto rickshaws or run your vehicles, because they might run on natural gas. So just a small compound, heating up a small compound gives us an enormous amount of energy to run an auto, a car, a bike, anything. So burning of natural gas will give you a lot of energy to run those vehicles. So that is why it is an exothermic reaction. It is giving out a lot of energy for you to run different things. Now let us summarize what happens in an exothermic reaction. So to begin with, products are being formed and also energy or heat is being released. Alright, so products are formed and energy is released. Now let us talk about the next type of reaction, which is the decomposition reaction. Now, by the name itself, we can understand that something is breaking down to give us something more simpler products, right? So here we have AB, which is heated to give us the products A and B. This is something which is the opposite of a combination reaction. So what exactly happened in a combination reaction? There A plus B combined to give us AB, but in a decomposition reaction, AB needs some amount of heat to give us the simpler compounds of it, which is A and B. Now we'll start taking examples. Here we have an example of ferrous sulfate. So what exactly is happening to ferrous sulfate? Ferrous sulfate is heated. So you don't say FeSO4 plus heat. You just say FeSO4, the bracket, and sorry, not the bracket, the arrow, and right on top of the arrow you write heat. And that is how you get to know that ferrous sulfate is getting heated. So now ferrous sulfate getting heated to give us smaller compounds of it. Alright. So FeSO4 broke down to give us Fe2O3. Fe2O3 is ferric oxide. Okay. You need to note all of this down. Ferrous sulfate, ferric oxide. Alright. And we also need to write down the state symbols. FeSO4 would be solid. Fe2O3 would also be solid. SO2 would also be, no, it would be gas, and SO3 also would be gas. So what is happening here? A huge compound is breaking into smaller compounds, right? So we have another example where a simpler compound is being formed because of a huge compound on the reactant side. So what is there on the reactant side? CaCO3, which is calcium carbonate. So that is being heated up to give us CaO, calcium oxide, plus CO2, which is carbon dioxide. So that was also one of the examples for decomposition, where a big compound requires heat to break down into smaller compounds. Then we have few other examples, such as 2AgCl in the presence of sunlight gives us 2Ag plus Cl2. So what is happening here? We have AgCl, which is silver chloride. Ag is silver, Cl is chlorine. So together they form silver chloride. So that is taken and put under the sunlight, because of which we are getting smaller compounds, or as in here they are elements. So this breaking down to give us Ag and Cl in the presence of sunlight. That is an example for decomposition. So when this experiment is performed, you will observe that the AgCl, which is actually white in color, will turn gray in sunlight. Now gray is the color for the actual silver, right? AgCl will be white. Now when you put that in sunlight, it will turn to gray. Now gray is the color for the element silver. Silver is represented as Ag. So this is what you have to remember. White in the presence of sunlight turns gray. So silver chloride in the presence of sunlight turns into silver and chlorine. Then we have another example for silver bromide. Silver bromide, when exposed to sunlight, gives us silver and bromide separately. So this also is similar to the previous reaction that we just saw. So what exactly is happening in these reactions? A bigger compound, just as you see on your screen, that is being heated or being exposed to sunlight, either of them. So it is being heated or exposed to sunlight to break into smaller compounds. So the heat or the sunlight that you're giving to the huge compounds to break into smaller compounds is also a form of energy, right? So whenever a form of energy is required for you to break compounds, then it is called as an endothermic process, right? Previously under combination we learned about exothermic. Here we will be learning about endothermic. Looking at the word endothermic, endo means taking in, thermic, anything related to heat, which can also be sunlight. That is why the whole word means that it takes in heat. So it either takes in heat or any other form of energy that is required to break down the compounds. So all these previous examples that you observed in the decomposition are also endothermic. Why are they endothermic in nature? Because they require some sort of energy, which is either heat or sunlight, to break the bigger compounds into its smaller compounds. So these are not only decomposition reactions, but they are also endothermic in nature. This is another example for the decomposition reaction where your lead nitrate, lead is indicated as Pb. So this becomes lead nitrate, which is taking a form of energy, which is heat, to break down into further compounds, which is PbO, 4NO2 and O2. So we'll have to indicate the state of the matter, which is solid, heating to give us PbO, which is again solid. NO2 is a gas, and this is the emission of brown fumes, alright? And then we have oxygen, which is also gas. So this is another example for decomposition reaction. And also because it is taking in heat to break these compounds, it will also be an example for an endothermic reaction, alright? So now we talk about the third type of reaction, which is the displacement reaction. So what exactly is happening in a displacement reaction? Take this example where A is combining with BC to give B and AC. So look clearly what has happened in this reaction. A combined with BC. Alright? And then what happened? A got attracted to C, and now B was left out. So B now is present as only one single element, and A and C have formed a compound. So you might also ask me why A is not combining with B instead. Why is A not getting attracted to B? Now that is because the compound BC, that was formed only because B was a positive and C was a negative. So this is going to happen to most of your compounds here. Whenever they are formed, one of the elements of those compounds was a positive and the other was negative. And you surely know that opposites attract. The opposite charges, plus and minus, they attract to each other, and the same type of charges, they repel each other, which means they get away from each other. So let us just write that down. Alright, B, I gave it a positive charge, C, I gave it a negative charge, and A, which was the element that was present in the reactant side, that also is given a positive. Now you know that positive and positive do not attract. Only positive and negative attract with each other. That is why A was attached to C and B was left out. Now you can also ask, why is it that this has to give us this, which means A has to get attracted to C. Why can't BC be left alone? Now that is because A was much more reactive than B. Now this is going to happen only if A was an element which was much more reactive than B. If A was an element which was less reactive than B, then the product would not be B plus AC. The product would remain A plus BC. Nothing would happen to it if A was a less reactive element or compound than B. Alright? Let us get to some more examples so that we understand this displacement reaction clearly. So we have our first example where Fe, which is ion, is reacting with CuSO4. CuSO4 is the chemical name for copper sulfate. Alright? So these two are reacting to give us FeSO4 plus Cu. So observe what just happened. Fe is much more reactive than Cu, which is why Fe attracted SO4 to combine FeSO4, and Cu was left out in the reaction. Alright, so this was your first example for displacement. Now we have another example where zinc reacts with copper sulfate to give us ZnSO4 plus Cu. Let us write the state of every element. Zinc would be solid, reacting with CuSO4, which is aqueous. Then ZnSO4, which would also be aqueous, and Cu, which is left out, will be S. Alright. Observe what happened. Zn is much more reactive than Cu. That is why it attracted SO4. So ZnSO4 was formed and Cu remained. So what was replaced here? Cu was replaced by Zn. That is why it is called a displacement reaction. Now let us take another example. Yeah. So here what is happening? Lead. Lead is represented by Pb. If you observe in the periodic table, lead has a Latin name plumbum, which is why it is represented as Pb. So lead is reacting with CuCl2. So because of Pb being more reactive than copper, it gets displaced, because of which the products that are formed are PbCl2 plus Cu. Writing the state for every element and the compound. Yes. Now that I've written the state, this becomes more clear. So here Pb replaced Cu. So Cu was left alone and PbCl2 is what was formed. Now you might ask yourself, why is Pb more, how do you know that Pb, which is lead, is more reactive than Cu? So for that, you have a list of elements which go in the increasing or decreasing order, and you will have to memorize that list so that you get to know which element is more reactive than the other element. So that there is a list, all right? And looking at these examples, we got to know that zinc and lead was more reactive than copper. Now the next reaction that we will be talking about is the double displacement reaction. So what happens here? As you would have observed previously in the displacement reaction, only one element displaced another element in a compound. But here you observe there are two compounds, AB and CD. So AB reacted with CD to form AD and CD. Now I told you previously that when a compound is formed, in that one of the element will be a positive and the other element will be a negative. Same here, alright? So you know that positive gets attracted to negative. So that is why AB and CD combine to give us A and D. Alright? So if it is not reacting with B, then it is reacting with D, but not with C. Why? Because C is positive and positive do not attract. They repel each other. That is why A and D formed a product and B and C formed a product. So B was negative, so it had to get attracted to positive. That is why they get attracted and they are here. So this will be the double displacement, because there are two compounds involved. There can be more than two compounds involved. I am giving you an example of only two so that it will be better for you to understand. So AB reacted with CD to give us AD and CD. Let us go to some of the examples now. So here we have an example for a double displacement where Na2SO4 combines with BaCl2 to give you BaSO4 and 2NaCl. Please take this as an assignment where you have to get to know if this is a balanced or unbalanced equation, and if it is not a balanced equation, please try to balance it out. Okay, so talking about double displacement now, we have Na2SO4. So what is Na2SO4? It is named as sodium sulfate. Please note down all of these chemical names properly because they will be helpful. Not only writing the chemical equation is enough, but also understanding the names of all of these chemical equations is also equally important. Now let us talk about the next concept, which is oxidation. Now what do you mean by oxidation? The word itself tells us that it is the addition of oxygen. Alright. Now let's look at the reactions that make this possible. So here we have a reaction where copper reacts with oxygen in the presence of heat to give us 2CuO. Now what happened? Copper, which was present as just a single element, was added with oxygen to give a whole compound of CuO. So here addition of oxygen took place, because of which it becomes an oxidation reaction. Now here we have another example where CuO, copper oxide, reacts with hydrogen to give us Cu and H2O. Now H gets added with an oxygen to give us water. Alright. So H, hydrogen, is undergoing oxidation. So if hydrogen is undergoing oxidation, then what happens to the copper? because copper is not undergoing oxidation. You see, it is getting rid of the oxygen atom. So what exactly is happening to copper? So what copper went through in this reaction is called as reduction. By the word reduction, it is the removal of oxygen, as oxidation was the addition of oxygen, right? Reduction would be removal of oxygen. All right. So oxidation would be addition of oxygen and reduction would be removal of oxygen. Now coming back to this equation, I just told you that hydrogen underwent oxidation, because it took an oxygen atom from the Cu, and now what happened to Cu? So Cu lost an oxygen. That is why Cu underwent the reduction reaction and hydrogen underwent the oxidation reaction. So when you see a reaction where both oxidation as well as reduction takes place, then we call that reaction as a redox reaction. Re stands for the reduction, Red stands for the reduction, and Ox stands for oxidation. So it becomes a reduction oxidation reaction. So this whole reaction is a reduction plus an oxidation reaction. Now let us talk about a few effects of oxidation and reduction reactions. So these are the kind of reactions that takes place in our surroundings. So one of those is called corrosion. You must have observed that when you place iron somewhere, just left outside. So if you just leave the iron outside, maybe on your terrace for some days, and when you go and observe it, then you will see that the iron has rusted. All right. Now that is because it got oxidized. Now, what do I mean when I say that it got oxidized? So the metal that you placed in your surroundings got attacked by a few other things present in its surrounding, something like moisture or acids, etc. So it corroded. So this process where the iron gets rusted or any other metal comes in contact with other substances like your acid or the moisture, then it undergoes something called corrosion. So corrosion causes a lot of damage to all the objects that are made up of metals. It causes damages to your cars, bridges, iron nailings, ships, etc. So you must have seen the bridges that you walk through. They are repaired on a very yearly basis, maybe, or it has to be very specific amount of time. All right, because bridges are all made up of metals, and surely metals undergo oxidation to corrode, right? That is why we do not want that to happen. We do not want bridges to break down. That is why you'll have to keep checking into it so that nothing gets corroded. Now, another effect of oxidation is rancidity. Now, what exactly is rancidity? It is the oxidation of fats that is caused by hydration. By hydration, I mean water. So, what is happening in this process? So, it is oxidizing the fats and oils when it is exposed to your air. So, you must you can take an example of bread. You leave a bread somewhere to exposed air for some amount of time, a few days maybe, and then you observe that a layer of fungi is formed just above it. So that is because of rancidification. Okay, so rancidification is the oxidation of fats that is caused by hydration. Remember that. Corrosion is something where oxidation takes place on metals. Rancidity is the oxidation which takes place on fat and oily bodies. Now this brings us to the end of the first chapter. So what are the things that you have to concentrate in this chapter is the balancing of all the chemical equations and knowing all the names of all the compounds that are being used in those chemical equations. Then the types of reactions. So if I give you like MCQs, like I give you 4 options, and among them you'll have to find out which one is the combination reaction, which one is the decomposition, double displacement, displacement. Then we talked about oxidation and reduction, and when both of them happens in the same chemical equation, it is known as the redox reaction. Then the definitions for all of these, you will have to remember that as well. And just another thing that I had to say about oxidation and reduction is that when oxidation happens, it is not only the addition of oxygen, it is also the removal of hydrogen. So in a few reactions, when you see that there is removal of a hydrogen atom, then that is called as an oxidation reaction. And when there is, you know that when related to oxygen, when talking about oxygen, when there is a removal of oxygen, it is called a reduction reaction. But when there is an addition of hydrogen, then also it is called a reduction. So oxidation is addition of oxygen and removal of hydrogen. The same way, reduction is removal of oxygen and addition of hydrogen. Just remember that. And yeah, that is the summary of your whole chapter. Please concentrate on the balancing of chemical equations. Don't forget the state symbols. Please specify which one is a solid, liquid, gas, aqueous solution. Then yeah, that is it. Concentrate on most of the definitions as well, and keep practicing all of the reactions. That is it for today.